Hi, my name's Dave Price, and it's great to have on the show Stuart McKee. Stuart, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on again.
No, really good to see you again, actually. And I think lots of things have been changing since we last talked.
It's been a busy few months for us. We were part of an acquisition by a Canadian funder called Armada Credit Group, which has completed over the kind of past few weeks. So these guys have been around for kind of 15 years in Canada, funding deals across the US and Canada.
Okay.
And now they,
Just in case somebody hasn't actually seen a previous recording, do you want to just take a step back and tell me what you were doing, what the
of
business
course, yeah.
for that?
Yeah, so when we last spoke, we were funding predominantly in the UK, funding across our kind of key demographics, which was energy, education, and kind of office tech. And we'd started to do a little bit in the aesthetic space. So we were funding UK customers, working with suppliers of equipment in the UK to fund all their projects. And that's what we've been doing for 7, 8 years as an independent broker. So that's where we were. As I say, where we are now. Armada Credit Group, who are based in Canada, they are specialists in the aesthetics funding world. So that can be medical devices, lasers, things like that. And they wanted a presence in the UK. So I've known Bill and Danny for several years, and we got on well, and it just seemed to fit. So Armada came on board and took a 50% stake in the business, as I say, over the last few weeks. And we're now very much changing the way we operate. So we now have capabilities to fund in the US and Canada through Armada. We also fund across the majority of Western Europe. And obviously, the UK is still our base. It's still where we'll do our core business. But what that means is we can actually now support international suppliers. So there's a lot of suppliers of equipment that aren't just UK based, aren't just US based. So one supplier, for example, we fund their projects in the US, we fund their projects in Canada. We're now looking at their projects in France and Germany and Italy. So we've got this capability to really give an all-encompassing support to those guys. And we're both a funder and a broker. So just to clarify on that, so as a funder, we can take the deals ourselves. We can make the credit decisions. We can come up with the innovative solutions to fund the deals. And as a broker, we have access to some of the biggest high street banks and funders that there are, BNP Paribas, Siemens Financial Services, etc. So we can get the clients the best of both worlds.
One thing I wanted to delve into, because a lot of people, when you just hear a finance broker, it's just a finance broker, but the specifics you said about the aesthetics industry,
Yeah.
how isn't finance finance?
A lot of people do look at that, and outside the industry, that's the opinion people would have. But if you look at the aesthetic space, so the aesthetic space, if you take one certain device, which could be that laser could be used, the end user client for that laser could be a range of different people. So that could be a small salon that maybe has it as an add-on service.
Hmm.
It could be an aesthetic clinic that is doctor led. So, you've got a lot of doctors that are still working in the NHS, but will run a private clinic a couple of days a week, and they will use a laser to perform these treatments. So these lasers can, improve your skin. As you can see, I've not had much work done yet. I'm hoping to, but remove the wrinkle lines. They've got so many. It's such a burgeoning industry, and there's so many applications. But as I say, the client base can be a small sole trader that needs to borrow maybe £50,000 to buy one of these lasers, all the way through to a huge clinic that might want three or four, but it's doctor led. So the actual credit from that point of view is vast. So you need to have that understanding, you need to have that knowledge. As I say, because of Armada's experience in that space, we're able to support a lot more deals, and we're funding deals that funders can't get to, other providers in the market can't get to, and it's to do with our comfort. Because we're comfortable with the equipment, we're comfortable with the vendors in the space, and ultimately these machines are revenue generating. If a client funds an aesthetic laser, that will go into their clinic. They will then offer treatments out, and they can very quickly make their money back. So it's a sound investment. So yeah, whilst finance is finance in a lot of people's eyes, having that kind of speciality, and as I've alluded to before, we have kind of key verticals we work in. The education space we understand implicitly, the energy space too, and now the aesthetic space, as I say, My knowledge is increasing, but with the support of Bill and Danny and the team in Canada, we have a great, knowledge base to work off already.
Got it. And again, just from sort of like a layman's perspective, the idea of getting a laser for your business, isn't that the same as getting plant and machinery for a factory? And isn't the finance all the same?
It has similar kind of benefits. So, the key benefit for me for any form of finance in terms of asset finance or leasing is that ability to spread the cost. So if you fund a piece of plant, you might fund that because you've got ongoing contracts that you need to satisfy, so the money will come in. So from there, it's similar, but you look at that credit type. So if it's a customer's buying a large piece of plant, they're probably a big manufacturer, strong balance sheets, lots of income. So actually, from a credit point of view, they're a much more attractive proposition, and also the assets themselves. So in the UK and very similar across Europe, hard assets are more sought after. So if you've got a piece of yellow plant, if you've got a JCB, if you've got a truck, well, that holds its value. So should the worst come to worst, the customer can then sell, the customer can't afford to pay for it, the agreement's defaulted, well, that funder can then go out and recoup some of his losses by selling on that kit. Whereas the medical aesthetics world, those lasers, unless you have specialist knowledge, that's essentially classed as a soft asset. So there doesn't seem to be a tangible value to it. So you've got to have that knowledge and understanding. You've got to know where to go. And, if a clinic can't afford to pay for their laser anymore and they've got to go into default, who's buying that laser? Do you have a client base that can actually pick it up? Do you have another vendor partner that might actually be able to resell that type of equipment? If you don't have that knowledge base, you're not giving comfort to the funders. So if a funder works with a specialist, and this happens, don't get me wrong, it's not just us, there's specialists in different industries. Some guys specialize in the garage industry. Some guys will specialize in the IT space. But what you get is a trust from the funder that actually, how do we mitigate our risks? So we look at this deal and we go, okay, so the customer is fine from a credit point of view. What happens worst case scenario? Have we got the support of the broker? Do they have the knowledge to actually support us? If I went and said, oh, I can start funding certain widgets, and they go, well, you've never been in this space before. How do you know this space? How do you trust it? And I think that's commonplace. I work with a group of independent brokers. It's a kind of association, and we have different specialisms within that. And what they've found, some of the guys specialize in media, but by actually going to speak to the funders and showing the funders their knowledge and how the equipment works and what the possible routes to exit, if you need to sell, that's had an impact on the credit decision that comes from the funder. And a lot of people don't see that. So the funder's actually saying, well, ABC broker, you specialize in media, you understand it, your customers, the kit, you market, they're more likely to do that deal for them because they've got an implicit understanding than they are for me because I don't have that knowledge. And that's how it should be. There are so many great brokers in the UK, and I've said this before, that understand their markets, that understand the customers, the demographics, everything. And funders, rightly so, should actually get closer to the brokers and just understand that.
I must admit, I didn't realize it was so specialized, the different fields, the different industries, and how bespoke the finance is, depending on not just the borrower, but what they're actually funding as well.
And that's the thing. Don't get me wrong. In the UK, there's also generalists, and we can be generous at time. We can fund pieces of a kit that we maybe haven't funded before. But the funders have knowledge. But as I say, the beauty is a lot of the guys. I know guys that specialise in catering, guys that specialise in fit outs. So he'll fund several deals where it's a brand new start for. You've got to have that knowledge. He'll know exactly what you need to get that deal through. Whereas other people won't have that experience. And I think that's the key. And I think that's also where vendors get comfort. So, the people who are actually supplying the equipment, well, if you're in the aesthetic space, you want to deal with somebody who understands aesthetics. If you're in the energy space, you want to deal with somebody who understands your energy product. We were talking to someone earlier today about hydrogen. So hydrogen is the kind of next big thing in the energy space. And we're researching more, we're understanding more. And then we can have those conversations with our funders who also play in that space. So yeah, the tie-up's key. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with being a generalist funder. There's no issue or broker. There's no issue with that. But you just seem to get a bit more comfort. Funders seem to get more deals done if you have that specific knowledge.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense again. And until someone says it or explains it to you, yeah, you don't realize how much specialism is required in these things.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this was one of the key things in choosing this new partner then, was it their background in the aesthetics industry?
Yeah, as I say, it's for me, and most relationships are based on how you get on with people. There's
Yeah.
no point partnering with someone. So I've known Bill 15 odd years. We kind of spoke over the years, and they're very strong in the aesthetic space, very much understood that. Um, but the crux of the matter was I get on great with Danny and Bill. Always have, always will. And I think that's part of any acquisition. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be, learning curves and things you have to get used to. But actually, it was them, their knowledge, their experience, their access to vendors and funders, and actually their personalities. We get on great. They support the business. We very much feel now as part of the family. We are still, operating in the UK, and we look after all the UK business, and we're looking after a lot of the European business. But we all work as a team. But yeah, they're great guys, and their knowledge is second to none. I mean, especially Bill spends a lot of time kind of going out meeting the vendors. He gets to go to all the posh do's. He'll be in France at all these wonderful events, and I'll be here doing the work. But it works well.
Cool. No, it sounds great. So what are the plans of the future with this new partnership?
So very much to what I was saying earlier in terms of we're looking to now support more international vendors. So we're going to continue to grow the UK business and continue to support vendors that only work here. But now with our capabilities, we can actually target and support larger vendors, vendors, as I say, that operate across different countries. And rather than them having to, for example, they might deal with a company in the US, they might deal with a company in Canada, they might deal with a company in France, company in the UK. So they're now dealing with 4 different partners that are offering leasing. What we're actually going to as a proposition is saying is we'll be your partner for the US, for Canada, for UK, France, Germany, Switzerland, Slovakia, wherever you're looking to operate, where we can support, we can actually give you an all-encompassing facility. That means you come through us. So, if there's a deal in Italy, it comes through us. If there's a deal in the US, it comes through us. So you're getting that continuity of service. You're getting a structured kind of finance rollout across the different countries. And it just, for me, it's a nice bundled package. So that's ultimately what we want to do. We want to grow in those verticals. Education will continue to be UK only, but energy and aesthetics, we're now supporting. We were looking at our first LED lighting deal in Poland for a company based out there. So yeah, energy and aesthetics very much on an international basis. We're looking to deal with more customers and vendors, the equipment resellers.
How much of your business comes directly from the vendor, the supplier, rather than the actual end user? Because
Yeah. So I'd say about 85, 90% of our business is vendor driven. So where we've got a relationship with the equipment supplier, we become their finance partner of choice, and we're providing those finance options out to the customer. So as you can see from that percentage, the majority is vendor driven. We do have some direct customers we've known for a while, and we do ongoing finance for them, asset finance requirements. But as I say, predominantly business is vendor driven, and it will continue to be that way. It doesn't stop us from dealing direct. A lot of customers will go, "Oh, we finance this machine for us. Can you do this bit of kit for us?" Absolutely fine. We love that. We've already got an established relationship with them. We've obviously already arranged finance with them, so we know they're a good credit risk. But in terms of our kind of a targeted approach and where we're moving forward, it's getting in touch with those vendors want to work with us moving forward.
Right. And so, yeah, that makes total sense. Expansion with the vendor side for the energy and the aesthetic side of it. Are you still keeping your foot in on the education side in the UK, or is that still maintained, or are you moving away from that?
So we're still doing a lot of business in the education sector. So it's gone through a number of changes. There was new regulations brought in on the 1st of April this year, which was the Maintained Schools Leasing agreement, which kind of dictates to schools the type of funding they can have, which is a lease agreement, and the equipment that they can fund against it, which can be IT, LED lighting, etc., and stipulate certain things they can't finance. So one of the issues we have at the moment is, for example, there's no funding for solar PV, which is a major issue because schools can't lease it. They can't typically go and afford to spend 200,000 on a solar PV system. And there's some financing mechanisms through PPAs, but they don't seem to be very attractive to schools. So we're waiting, we're hoping. Obviously, we've had a new government. There's change coming, we think. But from the 1st of September, the regulations from the 1st of April were for maintained schools, so local authority schools.
Right.
From the 1st of September, provided that the Academy's handbook is updated and the regulations are put in place, all academies and maintained schools will work off the maintained schools leasing edict. So they'll all have to kind of conform to that, which is bad. It's what they can and can't fund. But what's going to have to happen, there's going to have to be an evolution of that so that we can actually fund more products, especially with a lot of education establishments wanting to get to net zero. There needs to be funding for voltage optimization, EV charge points, battery storage. All of these items are currently missing from this list, and they get added as schools, want to invest and move forward with their net zero plans. That needs to happen. So yeah, we're heavily involved in the education space, and again, we're supporting a lot of schools who haven't had the knowledge or the experience. They haven't been told about these changes or haven't been made aware of these changes. So we actually very much support them to make sure they enter into the right agreements, etc. So yeah, it's a big space. I think the next 3 to 6 months is going to see a lot of change, but that's why we're here. We're kind of here to support the schools and the vendors in that space.
But yeah, love it. So that's all staying basically as it was beforehand. No real change there. So it's more that real international expansion that you're going for now, then.
Massively so. We're very some of the funding relationships we have. Some of the providers we work with from a funding point of view, they have in-country access. So, they've got branches in country, they've got, the staff in country, they understand. And this comes back to the client base. When we're talking about understanding your client implicitly, the equipment implicitly, well, actually, I don't have the country knowledge for Spain. But what I do is have funders that understand the country, that understand the clients in that space. What an SME looks in Spain and looks in the UK could be totally different, but they understand and their culture, which is a huge thing. It's all well and good me saying we're international, we can go and do this. I can't speak a word of Italian. I'd be no use to anybody. So actually having the support from the funders to have people in country, so the sales team from the vendor point of view can speak to people in country, fund deals, and we support that whole facility. So yeah, it's in time. I will have to brush up on my language. My Spanish is relatively okay, but thankfully my brother and sister-in-law are both Spanish, so they look after the Spanish side for us.
That could help. Yeah, could you say expand internationally and you can go to all these different countries, legally? But yeah, the actual difficulties of doing business in a country where you don't actually speak the language and culture's totally different. Have you found any challenges coming up with that sort of thing?
There has been in terms of we're very much looking to kind of support vendors with unique funding solutions. But once you move into another country, there's obviously regulations around VAT, around tax, and all those differences. So actually, the key thing has been the support from the funders. So because that experience, as I say, because they've got the feet on the street, they've got that knowledge, we can very much structure the programs through them, and that gets away from any kind of issues that you'd have. Because don't get me wrong, if we just went up and set up in Germany, for example, and then tried to fund deals ourselves in Germany, that's a whole lot of paperwork, legal requirements. And to be fair to them, it wouldn't be possible without them, genuinely. So yeah, we rely on them for a lot, and they've been so far, really supportive.
Got ya. So it's the locations in the individual country. They're the key points of contact to make communication easier, etc.
Yeah, because you've got, so as I say, use Italy as an example, you have a vendor sales team based in Italy that'll be outside on equipment, and then you've also got the funder sales team that will help fund those projects. So actually, we can give them direct access to those funder contacts, so deals can be written and done that way as well. So yeah, I think that in country, feet on the street is really important.
Got ya. And you talk about Europe, America, Canada. Are those the three key areas now?
Yeah, so because US and Canada, that's Armada are based in Canada, so they fund already across the US and Canada. So that's very easy for them to do. They're used to America's got some crazy like 27,000 odd tax variances, depending on the state, city, whatever it might be. So their knowledge is brilliant because they can fund deals everywhere. So and just an example of our kind of international presence, we've got a vendor in the UK who's got who has a distributor in Canada, a distributor in the US. And what we've been able to do is just structure a finance program that we run from here, but we put them in touch. There's probably around 30, 35 staff over in Canada. And so again, what we can do is say, well, your distributor in Canada and the US can deal directly with my colleague, Nick, and he'll look after them. That helps with time zone variances, which is another thing. So it just, as I say, it just gives that continuity of service. So yeah, US and Canada are very much a key part, and Europe at the moment.
Oh, yeah. And have you got any examples of funding that you've done in these new regions recently, or is it still a bit too new to?
No. So we did our first deal, and this was again through a colleague and partner of mine. We've just done our first deal in Norway. So we funded some IT equipment for a client in Norway. We're looking at, there's a few proposals in Spain at the moment that are actually getting funded. And as I say, the project in Poland, we are just waiting for some credit approval on that, and that will move forward. So yeah, we're kind of go. What we had to do first was make sure we had the avenues in place. We can't kind of react to things after the fact. We needed to kind of set the lines or make sure they're ready to go. And now we've just got to fill those lines. So our access is there, our ability to fund is there. Which is part and parcel of the job, is we've got to get the deals in and get vendors on board and get cracking.
Got ya. And because there's finance brokers in Norway.
Yes, yeah.
So
yeah.
Would somebody not use a finance broker in Norway if they're Norwegian?
And they will do. And it really depends country to country. So in a lot of countries, brokers are a bad thing. A lot of countries don't have brokers. They go direct to their bank. They don't understand that broker world. Whereas the UK very much adopted it. There's funders in the UK that will only deal through the broker channel because they know that they're getting access to a lot of deals with much less kind of work. But two, they've got the support and the knowledge and the strength of the broker. So as I say, a customer in Norway may well use a broker, but what they won't have, a customer direct might, but the vendor might say, well, yeah, but I've got a deal in Norway, and this vendor did have a deal in Norway, but they are not based in Norway. So the vendor might have customers in the UK, Norway, Ireland, Italy. Well, we can support that, whereas the broker in Norway can probably only support the Norway deal, which is fine. It's not an issue, but what it does provides choice, and that's the key. There has to be more choice for every customer in any country.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And again, I suppose because it's the link to the product that's being funded is the key thing as well, isn't it?
And that's it. Our vendor partner, I think because our vendor partners know who we are, know what we do. Don't get wrong, they can always compare and contrast. If there's a broker in country that they say could do the deal, great. We'll compare them. If we can provide a better solution, then go with us. If we can't, go with them. But again, it comes down to choice and also have knowledge to be able to place that deal. So yeah, it's an interesting avenue.
Is there much competition to what you're doing? I know a lot of brokers out there, but the way you're working with vendors like this, are there many other people working in this sort of space?
Not as far as I know. There's one company in the UK that does and has been established, and they do a lot of European transactions, but they tend to be larger ticket transactions. So, very sizable transactions. Apart from them, to my knowledge, no one else like this. And this is the difference. It's creating some new. So there is operate internationally. So, banks and some of the funders we use, they operate internationally, but I don't know of another international broker that funds the way we do. And that's why we have to differentiate ourselves, because the UK market is competitive. It's strong. And that's a good thing. That means customers are getting a good choice. There's lots of good brokers. There's lots of good funders. There's lots of asset finance business being done. And that's brilliant. So, you have to look to differentiate yourself in that market and find a way to, be unique. And I think this makes us unique. That ability to kind of provide cross-border funding, the ability to support vendors across Europe, US, Canada, UK, Ireland. Yeah, it's good. It's a good position to be in.
Sounds really exciting. So if we were to ask you the question, if we were going to chat in a year's so's time,
Yep.
would you like to? And I go, how's the last year been, Stuart? What would you like to be able to say?
I need to be able to say it's been phenomenal. We've got some hefty targets which are achievable, but we really want to make a presence felt. As I say, we want to. I was saying we brought on 10, 15, 20 vendors, international vendors. We've grown the UK energy space. We're working with people in the hydrogen space now, like hydrogen generators, new technologies that are coming into the energy space. So yeah, so very much we're writing more business, we're making more money, and we're supporting more clients.
Great, love it. Yeah, that's the way to go. I must admit, you mentioned hydrogen, funding hydrogen. I'm struggling to get my head around how that would even.
Yeah, so it's very same with any of these new technologies. When solar first came out, people were like, well, how does this work? LED lighting. So it takes a while for the to kind of understand it, and for myself personally to understand it. But for example, I know that there's generators that are run on hydrogen now that are much more efficient than, if you look at a diesel generator, the cost of the diesel, the emissions it provides. There's a company that has a generator. Now these are expensive bits of kit, but if you're investing, and most businesses, we look UK just for the moment, most businesses in the UK have a net zero target. They want to be green, they want to reduce their emissions, they want to reduce their carbon. It's part of their sell to their customers, and a lot of people have to be green because of their supply chain. So these new products and these new technologies, we need to understand, because if we understand them, we can explain them to our funders. If we explain them to our funders will want to fund those types of deals. So yeah, I'm very much like yourself. It's new for me in terms of hydrogen, and the products. So I was speaking to somebody who provides electrolyzers that actually generate, an income, because you can attach them to a renewable power source. It will generate water and humidity from it, and that can get, as you can see, I'm still at the starting stage. But yeah, kind of the next big thing, I think, in energy.
And again, I suppose it goes back to what we were saying earlier, having that knowledge of the system. Because a hydrogen generator, I don't think I'd actually heard the term until this conversation.
And I hadn't, until somebody called me out of the blue and said, Stu, can you fund these? I was like, yeah, of course I can. Give me a few days to go have a look and actually try and find out what they are. So yeah, it is because it makes it interesting, to learn these new technologies. It's the same in the aesthetic space. We're learning more and more about what these different lasers can do, and the different applications they have in terms of, obviously it's aesthetic. So, it might improve your jawline, it might remove your wrinkles, it might make you 20 years younger. It may even replace some of these bald patches. You never know. So yeah, it's all about learning about those products and how they can benefit the customers.
Yeah, and again, just what you said earlier, how the financing is. Yeah, what's the residual value on something like that? Is there a resale value? And oh God, yeah, fascinating to learn about this stuff.
But as I say, it's one of those things that I can totally appreciate from somebody, and it'll be the same in other industries. When people look at our industry, they go, "Well, they just finance kit, don't they? That's it. It's ultimately what we do." But actually, you've got to get the finance in place, which is probably the hardest part of any broker's job, is taking the deal from initial inquiry, getting the funding in place. Because once the funding is in place, that's most of the battle done. Then it's negotiation over figures, timescales, things like that. But if you don't get the deal placed, it's no use to anybody. If you don't get the deal approved, it's no use to the customer. So if you don't have that knowledge and you don't have that, you can't take that deal the extra mile, then that's where it falls down.
Does it feel as though you're doing an open university science course at the moment?
Don't get wrong, it does, because energy, as I say, LED lighting, solar, all these things that I've dealt with for a long time now, I'm very comfortable with. But when someone introduces something new, you do have to go. So that, like, as I say, in the aesthetic space, it might have an applicator that can do one job, but if you get a different applicator, it will do something else. And trying to remember that and apologies, you say that's what makes the job interesting. You're something new, and you're getting a better knowledge base every time you write a deal, you place a deal for a customer, you work with vendors. And vendors are great, because vendors want to tell you about their products. They want you to understand their product, because they know that we're helping them sell.
Yeah, I can see that. Love your interest in it. Yes. And so is that idea just to keep those three niches, the two niches internationally, or are you looking to go into other things, or just go really deep into?
Yeah, stay in our lane is very much our thing at the moment. It's
Yeah.
this opportunity in those sectors that we need to, there's no point moving into another sector until we've saturated that, and I don't think we ever will. There's great, there's lots of opportunity, but there's lots of competition in those industries. So we have to, be at the forefront of that. We have to set ourselves apart from the rest, and that will keep us that will keep us busy for a long time coming. So yeah, we've got no plans to go into any other verticals at the moment. Just kind of, as I say, stay in our lane.
Yeah, and as you say, those avenues are very deep niches you're going into as well, aren't they?
Yeah, and with forever evolving technology, you know, hydrogen's one thing. There'll be new technology that comes out, different ways of getting to net zero, different energy products, and yeah, so yeah, it keeps us more than busy.
Mm. 'Cause I can totally see why energy makes sense as we're going to need a lot of energy going forward. You're very much going down niches that are really expanding. The aesthetics world as well, I imagine, is really, really growing at the moment too.
Yeah, that was an eye for me when the guys, when they spoke about aesthetics. I'd experienced a little bit of at one of my previous companies that I worked for because they did a little bit in that sector. When I saw the sheer value of the market, so it's not just lasers, it can be dermabrasion machines, it can be they've got little light guns that can get rid of your crow's eyes and things like that. The actual volume in that market is huge because there's lots of people going out and getting treatments. People want to. We're of an age now where men, women, whatever, want to look better, feel better, have treatments to improve how they look aesthetically, and there's so many different ways they can do that. That there's so much opportunity in that marketplace, and as I say, a lot of GMC doctors are setting up their own kind of private clinics to generate a private income alongside their NHS income. So yeah, I was flabbergasted is probably the best word at how big that opportunity was in terms of size of market.
But yeah. And was it something a couple of years ago you thought back, what's going to be a good growth industry to get into?
But and that's it. I genuinely 2 years ago I was very much energy and education focused. That was me. I didn't know enough about the aesthetic space or didn't know enough about the opportunity in there to even consider it. But yeah, it was an eye opener, as I say, when Bill and Danny kind of brought that to the fore, and as I say, because of their experience and they deal with partners across the world already. Yeah, it's been
Yeah, rather than trying to reinvent the wheel and learn everything from scratch yourself, it makes so much more sense to partner with somebody like that.
yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, was it chicken and egg? Was it something you decided to go in, or because of the relationships you had with these guys already in the past?
Because of the relationships, yeah. As I say, these guys have already been able to bring in relationships, existing relationships in the US and Canada. They've been able to bring into the UK already. So yeah, you're already seeing an impact from that.
Oh yeah, cool. Makes great sense. One thing I was going to ask you about was the Guild of Professional Finance Brokers.
So this is something that I'm proud to be a founder member of, and basically
Founder member of.
founder member. So there was several of us that got together. Oh, this has been ongoing for about a year and a bit. Trevor Perry and Stephen Bassett, who are both kind of stalwarts of the industry, they brought together all the independent brokers. So these are all independently owned, can be varying in size. They might be, from one person all the way through to 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 staff, but experiencing the same challenges, experiencing the same issues with the marketplace, the regulations within the marketplace, and actually how we treat customers. And the idea was to bring together all that knowledge and experience, provide standards as well. So we pride ourselves on how we deal with our customers, as do all these other brokers that are in the guild. And you can't just enter the guild; you have to be approved into the guild. So any new member would be vetted to a point, but it's so that customers, what we want, and this probably comes back to your earlier point, what we want is customers to actually have confidence that they're working with somebody who's knowledgeable, that's trustworthy, that will do what they say they'll do, that is authorized sometimes. So in terms of regulated customers, so sole traders and partners, you have to be financially conduct FCA authorized. But actually to let them know what we do, because I don't think a lot of them do. Asset finance is such a key way of businesses growing and investing. But what we want to do as a guild is we want to put out, look, we are kind of we rather, if someone in the guild does something that's improper, they'd be asked to leave the guild. That's part and parcel. We want to bring some standards to the industry, and just to say, get that word out to the customers so that they know what asset finance is, how they can utilize it. And don't get wrong, we compete with each other in this guild. That they're my peers, but they're also competitors of ours. But if I'm going to lose a deal to anybody, I'd rather it to be to a guild member, because that customer is being looked after, and that is the key. We all have a duty of care to our customers. We have a duty of care to ensure that the finance solution we are providing is the best finance solutions for them, and the guild just provides that. As I say, independent brokers, loads and experience. One of the key things for me has been that I can go. We have kind of monthly meetings, and I can pick the brains. As I say, peers, competitors, but I can ask them, well, how did you get past this? Or have you had this challenge with this funder? Or how can I get this deal done? And actually, there's that shared wealth and knowledge that just means customers are ultimately benefiting, which was the key purpose of the guild. So there's several members, all very well established and well respected brokers.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that idea of just increasing the service for customers. But the other thing is, you say, because of the sort of specialisms in the field that most people probably weren't even aware of. Yeah, again, you're specialising in athletics. I'm trying to think of the motor industry could be another.
That's it. If I think of some of the people within the guild, there's guys that just finance cars, business, understand it implicitly, understand that knowledge. I don't finance a lot of cars for business because it's not my area of expertise. I can do it, but actually the specialists, the catering, the specialists in media, the specialists in scaffolding, people that understand the vendors, they understand the customers in those spaces, and actually probably work with funders. So some funders won't deal in certain industries. So some funders won't fund LED lighting, for example, but there'll also be funders that might not fund media equipment. But if you go to the media specialist, and there's 2 or 3 of them in the guild, well, they will know which funder will fund that type of kit. They'll not know what the kit does. They'll know how to explain it to the funder. They'll know how to tell the story. And that's ultimately what we are as brokers a lot of times. We're storytellers. We're telling the funder the reason the customer wants to buy this equipment, the reason they want to invest in it, and why the funder should take that risk to help that business grow. And, I've seen some of the write-ups these guys put together, and it's brilliant because it's not back of a fag packet. They've got, they've had an ongoing relationship with the customer. They've understood the customer's wants, desires, why they're investing in the equipment. What's the rationale? What's it going to impact the business? How's the business been trading? What's their financial performance like? What's the risks? Ultimately, there's risk with any deal. And what's the mitigants? Well, why should the funder go, well, yeah, I can see those risks, but what can you do to give me comfort? That's what a broker should be doing. A broker provides that area of expertise, provides that knowledge that ultimately means that the customer gets the right funding for the right product at the right time. And that's the key.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And I'm intrigued with the guild, you say, because in some ways you guys are all a lot of competitors.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer always to sit down with your competitors and you actually start talking and you find, actually, no, we do that, but we do. Have you had kickback where people are like, no, not interested in that. I'm doing my thing.
I personally haven't. I personally haven't. From the guys I've spoken to, guys and girls that have come into it, I've not had any kind of kickback or any pushback on it. I can't speak for the members, but the guild's got several brokers in the same spaces. But actually, we're all we all want to make money. We all want to support our customers. We all want to get deals done. But we also respect the fact that we are going to compete and we're going to let you win deals, you lose deals. That's just part of life. There's no. I'd rather, and I managed to gain because some of the brokers in that space, one of the brokers is probably times the size of us. So they've got experience with staffing. They've got experience with scale. They've got access to some funders that we might not. So I can leverage their experience to do more business, and they're happy to share. And I think that's been the great thing about the guild. Everyone is happy to share their knowledge, and they're happy to go and do things. So one of the guild members has kind of tasked himself with, understanding all the different trading agreements. So when we work with a funder, we have certain requirements and to adhere to. So as part of their the guild, they'll go off and spend their own time at no cost to understand that for us. We're looking at the moment into apprenticeships for asset finance industry. So that's something I'm kind of working with the team. So there is one currently, we're waiting for it to be funded or government funded, but we'll then put an apprenticeship scheme in place that all the guild members can access. So they can bring on apprenticeships, all of us can, that are going to go through the same learning curve, the same process, understanding of the industry, understanding of how different things work. But then you've got a joined up approach to how we bring people into the industry, which is hopefully through the apprenticeship scheme. So you've got just that the guild's ability to give customers the best value. You've got staff that are going through the same training requirements, then providing the same service levels, whether it's my brokerage, ABC brokerage, another brokerage. We're just increasing the standards, increasing the quality in the industry.
I love the whole idea of the guild. To be honest, I was a bit surprised when you said you've actually started it off, because it's the sort of thing you'd expect has been going for years and years, but this is all completely new.
Yeah, as I say, conversation, Trevor Perry, as I say, and Stephen Bassett, they kind of got a few people together, and as with anything, then we invited a few more. We got discussing it. We've met at our kind of conferences and what have you, and it's great from there, and it's brilliant. It's needed. We needed a voice. We will change things in the industry. We will hopefully challenge things with the government. We'll challenge things with British Business Bank. We'll challenge the organisations to provide better service and better quality into the industry. And as I say, it all stemmed from kind of what small icons and everything. But it's their own legs, and it's great to be part of it.
It's great to see different organisations working together like that, as you say, learning off each other, not making mistakes that others have already made, and just working in a more collaborative fashion, even though you are a lot of the times competitors.
Yeah, and it's
beautiful.
It's getting that knowledge out to customers. So one thing the guild does is a podcast. So they have different guests on, either external guests or people from the guild, who can talk about their knowledge, their expertise. And actually, that's a podcast that a business owner can sit there and listen to and go, actually, does that mean? Does that a switch that goes, actually, I could do with some new equipment, or I could do with investing in this, I could do this. Well, they're getting that knowledge just shared with them, not pushed down their throat. They don't have to listen to podcasts, but they can choose to, so it's informative, and it helps people understand what this industry actually does.
Yeah, no, I think it's a beautiful idea, and just, why wasn't it done before, basically?
Yeah, but that's always, isn't it?
Always. And so going forward then, are you going to be turning into an international jet setter? Are you going to be flying?
Not a chance. No, I'm a homely bod, so I shall be firmly planted here. Bill, to be fair, one of my business partners, Bill spends a lot of time kind of traveling across US, Canada, and Europe, and supports relationships. I'm more than happy to jump on a plane occasionally, but I will be here in the engine room, as we call it, making sure that the deals are coming in, the vendors are being supported, the team are working on their deals. So not an international jet setter. I'm too long in the tooth. You need a young apprentice to take that on.
I know the feeling. Sounds great idea, flying all over the place, but in reality,
Exactly that.
Stuart, it's been really good to talk to you, and great to catch up with what's been going on. It sounds you've got a really exciting future ahead of the new partnership.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's kind of very enthused. We've got big plans over the next 12 months. And as you say, when we speak next, hopefully there'll be lots of updates and lots of positive news and in the industry as well. So it's all looking very good at the moment.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, no, I look forward to chatting again in the future and see how it's going, and also how the guild's going. I actually love that story. I think that's brilliant to be starters of something like that in an industry.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, next time we talk, I'll get some updates from the guild and some of the members, and that's something that hopefully people can benefit from, especially business owners in the UK.
Yeah, definitely. No, real pleasure to talk to you as always, and we shall catch you soon.
Thanks, David. Thanks for your time.
Cheers, Stuart. Thanks.
Cheers.